we come to our final reflection on Easter Saturday. And our passage this morning from Matthew chapter 27, looking at verses 57 through to 66, picks up some events that happen after Jesus died on the Friday night, and then some of the events of Saturday itself. Just two very simple things to see. Firstly, this passage reminds us that Jesus was buried. This has been an important truth throughout the history of the church. In 1 Corinthians 15, it's there in one of those early creeds. It appears in both the Apostles' Creed and in the Nicene Creed. Jesus Christ died for sins and was buried. He was really dead. If you're looking at this first instance, why don't you have a look at Joseph of Arimathea? Find him a striking character. Everyone else, it seems, deserted him. But this faithful believer took his body and arranged for it to be buried in a tomb. The Bible is clear. Jesus didn't just fall asleep, pass out on the cross. He died and he was buried. Reflect also on those two women, Mary and Mary Magdalene. They're there in verse 61. Sometimes you hear people argue that the women went to the wrong tomb on Easter Sunday morning. Well, Matthew knocks that out, doesn't he? Because these two women were there on the Friday evening, seeing Jesus be buried. So that's the first thing just to reflect on. Jesus really did die. He really was buried. But here's the second thing I want us to reflect on. And this is from the verses 62 through to 66. A reminder that no one can stop Jesus' resurrection. In this passage, the Jewish leaders, I don't know what they're doing on the Sabbath, which is interesting in itself, but they head off up to see Pilate because they're in panic mode. They know that Jesus taught that on the third day he would rise again, and they fear that these deserted disciples are going to come back, steal the body, and claim that Jesus has risen. Pilate, as always, is always willing to give in for an easy life, and therefore agrees to put a guard on the tomb. It seems quite clear that the intent of the Jewish leaders in this passage is not a good one. They want to ensure that Jesus' followers have no place to go, that Jesus' ministry is extinguished. But notwithstanding that, in one sense, evil, bad intent, God uses it for good. But of course, when Jesus does rise on Easter Sunday morning, we now have a God who are witnesses to these events. A reminder that God can take even things that are bad and things which are done with bad intentions and use them for good, to provide even greater evidence of the truth that Jesus died and rose again. That's where I'd like us just to close our reflections this week. In the events around us in the world, sometimes it can be hard to see how is good going to come from this. Maybe on Easter Saturday, some of the disciples felt that. And yet God is using even the Jewish leaders and their bad intentions for good, so that when Jesus rises, there's evidence to it. Let us trust and pray that God can do the same in our generation and bring good out of everything that's happening in our world today.